Welcome to the B&M Broadcast. Our first guest today is Mike Jones.
We hope you enjoy today. So how are you doing today, Mike?
Oh, I'm doing okay.
Awesome.
Good to hear. So, first of all, I look behind you and I see all these knives. Obviously, that's what you do for a living. What kind of got you started?
Yeah, how'd you get into that?
Yeah, so I'm full-time now, but for 4 years or so, it was just a hobby, kind of evenings and weekends in my shed, and it sort of picked up really slowly after a while, and eventually, actually, I hurt my back one day. I used to be a timber framer.
Oh, okay.
So big, heavy timber work all the time, and I hurt my back. So I was out for a month with a little bit of pay from like workers' compensation.
Mm-hmm.
And that let me actually build knives kind of full time for that month. And that was a perfect way to see, kind of compare what full-time work making knives would be compared to timber framing. And it was pretty much on par, but I didn't have to commute an hour and 15 minutes to work every day. So, so now I just work in my driveway I'm in a 20-foot shipping container right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's my shop, and I've been doing it ever since. It's been 3 years now or so.
That's awesome.
Wow. So what was like the shift in that month? Was it just because you were making the right amount of money? Was it because you enjoyed it way more and you were making less, so you decided to switch, or did it just completely replace it?
It was definitely a lot of factors. I really still enjoyed timber framing and stuff. I really love all that traditional joinery and stuff. So I was having a good time doing that, learning a lot. But it was the commute was one thing. Like I say, it was over an hour each way. And we had a newborn here, so I never saw him. And my wife was basically a single parent during those times. So that was really tough. And so there was definitely a lot of factors went into it. But being able to support the family and pay all the bills and everything off of this was that was definitely a big one. And, just quality of life stuff, being around, being in the driveway, like I say, so I can run in and help out if I need to. But yeah, it was really just came down to, can I support us on this and love it. The biggest one was I didn't want to, in like 10 years, still be doing it part-time and think back to like, oh, I wonder what would have happened. I didn't want to, I'd rather try it and it fail and at least say that I tried.
Yeah.
Instead of, having the regret or just always wondering what if. So if anybody out there has a hobby or a passion, especially in these times when everyone's at home, not working, doing their little passion, go for it. Like if you really have nothing to lose, really, you can always go back to your day job, follow that passion and see what happens.
Yeah, that's an awesome mindset. So how did you get your knives out there? I know your Instagram, you're really active on Instagram, and you have your YouTube channel. Was that your main way of building your brand? Like, what was your story for actually increasing your sales? Were you at trade shows, or was it pretty much digital?
Yeah, it was mostly digital for sure. You can't beat the reach of Instagram and stuff. It's free and it's worldwide. I've been to a couple of trade shows and they're okay. It's nice to be face to face with people and they can actually feel the knife in their hand, which is huge. But yeah, I mean, you can't beat social media for getting out there for sure. So just slowly kind of building that up, and that's been my major source of most of my sales for sure. And then building up a little bit of a local following now too, which is sweet.
Oh, that's awesome. So along with knives and stuff, I know you make some other stuff. What besides? I've seen some belts and stuff. You mentioned that you work with wood and whatnot. Is there anything else you do?
Yeah, I kind of dabble in a little bit of that just to kind of branch out from, doing the same sort of knives all the time. So yeah, I kind of do a little bit of some other leather work. It all sort of relates a little bit to what I do, just because then I've kind of already got the built-in sort of customer base or platform for that sort of stuff. But I like to branch out a little bit, still dabbling a little bit in the timber framing. I tried to move a little more into some furniture. So it's similar stuff, same sort of joinery in that, but on a much smaller scale, and something that, and I'm not lifting enormous timbers all the time trying to do it. So yeah, trying to keep it small for now.
Yeah. So, I mean, for our listeners out there, the people that would be interested in getting into knives and stuff, like, how did you start? You said you were doing it as a hobby at the beginning. did you have like a mentor who showed you the craft, or did you just try and fail over and over until you got it?
Mostly a lot of trying and failing. My only real mentor was YouTube, because there's no one else really around here that I can go and, pop into a shop and see what a professional knife production shop looks like, or ask someone questions directly, nothing like that. So I just, I just watched a YouTube video one day and it looked pretty accessible. So I went for it. And then once I realized, once I was done that first knife, it sucked. It was terrible. But once I had it in my hand, it was like light bulb, like, oh, anything that any shape I can draw on paper, I can turn into a real thing. And it didn't take that long to do. It wasn't like building a house where it takes months. This was like a matter of days or a week or something to make a finished product. So so that turnover was good. It kept my motivation up. But really, then I had a notebook full of all these sketches and designs and weird stuff that I'd never seen before, but I could actually turn them into real things, which was really cool. I've always liked working with my hands. And so, having that instant feedback of, this is what this knife felt like, even though it looked different on paper, this is what it feels like in the real thing or whatever. So yeah, it just really snowballed and took off from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So in your journey, obviously, whenever anyone starts something new, they make a lot of mistakes and errors. Do you have any good stories of mistakes you made at the beginning that you learned a lot from?
That would be tough to nail one down. That's the best way really to learn, is to make a mistake and then try not to make it again. But I made a lot of mistakes. I got a whole, any knife maker has what we call a wall of shame, or a shelf of shame, where you just have all of your just terrible mistakes. Lots of broken blades, cracked stuff, handles that didn't, just all kinds of things. The worst one, I think, was my very first hidden tang. So it's where the metal that's inside the blade goes fully into the handle. You don't see any metal around the handle at all. So it was the first time doing one like that. And I made this really cool wooden guard for it. And it took me so long to shape it and get it just right by hand and everything. Got it all fit up. It was perfect. The only thing was, when it wasn't completely straight, the way the blade came into the handle was just crooked by like a degree. Tiny amount, right? And at the time it was a stainless blade, and I was getting my heat treating done by this company that wasn't really doing a very good job, and didn't find out until this knife, really. And so I thought, like, I wonder if I could just tweak it just a little bit to straighten it out. And I clamped it up and I gave it just a little pull, and sure enough, it just snapped in my hands. And like, I was this close to tears, man. I just sat back and was just so defeated. I couldn't believe it. Oh, it was the worst. And so that one actually sat on my I wouldn't throw it away. I had to keep it because the handle was so perfect. It fit my hand just right. And it was this gorgeous piece of walnut burl. And so it sat on a shelf for 2.5 years until I finally researched how to get that piece of metal from inside the handle back out again. And I was able to get it out and put it back together, fit it with a straight blade. And I still have it. It's my most prized favorite knife that I've made, because I was able to, they call it kind of like a lemonade knife, because you get lemons and you try to turn it around. It's kind of a common term. If someone has like a blade with a broken tip or something, you just kind of reshape it a little bit, and they call it a lemonade knife. So I'm real happy that one worked out.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. So what is your favorite type of blade to make? Which ones do you enjoy the most?
Oh, definitely the Damascus. Whether it's a kitchen knife or a hunting knife or anything like that, just seeing that pattern come out of the blade when you put a lot of work into it. It's got to be forged to shape and everything. There's a lot of hand sanding and grinding involved. It's got to be polished pretty nice. And then you dunk it into the acid, which brings out the contrast in the two steels it's made from. And that first time you pull it out of the acid and you see the pattern just magically appear is super cool. That's one of the best moments in knife making, is seeing that pattern. Just like when you're the first wipe of oil onto a handle and you see the grain all come out of a nice piece of burl or something. So yeah, the Damascus stuff is super cool to do. Every time it freaks me out. And I make it.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. I've seen you pull one of those out on your Instagram page. It's absolutely beautiful. It looks like a perfect work of art.
Yeah.
That being said, you were talking about one of your biggest failures. As far as kind of where you you're climbing. You said you started small. Over long periods of time, you started to gain a following. Now you have a little bit more of a following than a lot of people. Where do you see yourself going?
I really hope it keeps kind of pushing the same way. I'm really trying. I wouldn't want to like blow up and grow super fast, kind of just, more than you can really handle, because, a lot of people end up failing that way if they don't grow properly, I guess. So I love that it's just been kind of slow and incremental, and I've got a really great core group of, return customers that are awesome. My customers are super great, and they've been really patient and everything with me, and they come up with some of the best ideas. Some of the models that I make often and more commonly are ideas from my customers that they came up with.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is cool. Yeah. So I'm hoping it just sort of kind of keeps like slowly progressing on that sort of tangent. I don't really want to have to hire anybody because I really don't like giving up any control of anything. I like to, every step of the way is done with my hands or whatever. Eventually I might have to let somebody else, get some kid in here and try to teach him what to do too. But I really like the way it's going right now. I'm as busy as I could, hope to be right now, which is really great. I'm really fortunate, especially during.
Okay, so before I cut off, you were saying, you're talking about your customers and how you've been still getting a lot of support during these times. So have you noticed any difference with what's going on in the world with the coronavirus and your business? Is it impacting you at all?
Surprisingly, not too bad for me. It's been pretty steady still. I've had a couple of people sort of disappear on me, just like can't get in touch with them when their knife is finished or whatever. But that's not too uncommon. I get maybe one every month or two or something like that. It's a little bit more right now, but not too bad. The biggest thing I've noticed impacting me is the kind of supply train. It's definitely affecting me up here. I'm up in the middle of central British Columbia, so I definitely have to order pretty much everything in that I use. So if there's stuff that occasionally some stuff's taking a little bit longer, or some suppliers are not working full weeks or whatever like that. So that's the only thing I've noticed a bottleneck in is that. But my customers have been super awesome. Orders keep coming in and everything. So I'm really fortunate in that sense for sure.
Well, that's awesome. That's great. So I've noticed while scrolling through your Instagram page, and I'm sure our listeners will be really interested in this as well, I saw Joe Rogan multiple times on your page. Can you tell us a little bit about that story? How you got in contact with him? How he learned about you?
That's been a heck of a ride. Just having that guy sort of involved at all. Originally, he came up to Central BC and went hunting with a guide outfitter.
Okay.
That's out of here that I've since then become friends with, and so this guy Mike Hawkridge, and Mike put him on this huge moose, and Joe came up with a camera crew and stuff, and so they got a photo of him holding this massive moose, quarter over his shoulder, and Joe's like a short dude, so this thing looks humongous on there. And that was actually on the cover of Peterson's hunting magazine and stuff. So that worked out really well. And so as a thank you for that, Joe kind of hooked Mike up with something. And then as a thank you for that, Mike wanted to, send him a hunting knife from someone. And he was hoping to find someone just in British Columbia. And one of the guides that worked with him had recently found out about me, said, check this guy out. And then we found out that he just lives like a half an hour away. He was like, this is crazy, so perfect. And so he came over and we hung out and talked about what he wanted to do for Joe and sent Joe a knife. And then a little while after that, I was kind of involved with Justin Wren from Fight for the Forgotten. Mm-hmm. And so through him, I did a couple of campaigns and we raised a bunch of money, which is really great. And then Justin was recently on Joe's podcast. And so when he went on, he wanted to bring Joe a couple of gifts just for all the support that Joe's shown, for Fight for the Forgotten. And so he got in touch with me and got me to make him a couple of knives. And that really, that blew me up really, really big in December of last year. which really basically saved my business. Actually, all of last year, I was really struggling. Things were really slow for 2019 for me, which was kind of scary. And then as soon as Joe posts a photo on Instagram, all of a sudden it's kablamo and everything goes crazy. So then, so he was super pumped on the knives that he got from Justin, which was really great. And he's been using them, which is nice. And then he actually got me to make some for a friend of his for Christmas. It's this guy that owns a ranch that he hunts on. So that was really cool. He actually ordered some knives from me, which was really neat. And yeah, just been a little bit of back and forth. When he ordered those ones, that's when I sent him a t-shirt, which he wore recently on the podcast with Elon Musk, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so Elon had to stare at my shirt for 2 hours, which is really cool. But yeah, so that's been amazing. He's super nice in the very limited contact I've had with him over Instagram. He's just been super supportive, and every time he uses my knife and posts a photo of it, he always tags me, which is really cool of him to do. And wearing my shirt on the podcast, but he didn't have to do that, but that was really sweet. And so yeah, the whole time he's just been as busy as he is, he'll still reply to a DM from me once in a while, just to he's just a real genuine, super solid guy, it seems, as far as I can tell. So, but yeah, like I say, that's really been that's why I'm super busy right now, and really fortunate to be busy during the pandemic time. And like I say, he pretty much saved my business Instagram post, which is pretty bananas.
So that's awesome. That was just so life-changing for you. One Instagram post, that it just shows you the power of the internet in today's world.
Yeah, that guy's got big reach.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really interested in the Fight for the Forgotten. We know you're really involved with that charity. How'd you get involved with them? You want to tell us a little bit more about their mission and everything?
Yeah, so they've been, their initial thing was to, Justin Wren, he's the founder of Fight for the Forgotten. He's been over in Africa. He's got a second family over there that he calls his second family, the Pygmy people over there. And he's been super instrumental the last handful of years digging water wells for them over there. And that just instantly transforms an entire community, having clean water. Otherwise, they're walking hours and hours just to bring back a bucket of water to bathe their child in or whatever, right? Like, it's unbelievable. And to listen to him talk about it is just, you can't help but be touched by just his passion and his genuine drive to helping these people. And so I was super inspired by him. And he found out on one of the more recent podcasts he did with Joe was that it cost $4,200 to dig a well for a community of people in the Congo. And I made these knives. I still make these knives called the Volks knife. And the idea behind that knife is that it's to get people out of the department store and into an actual handmade knife, but without being $400 or something, something that people can afford to get into. And so I make them for $100. And I thought, oh, well, that math is easy. $100 times 42 knives is a well. And so I posted a video on like a Wednesday morning driving home from dropping my kid off at daycare. And it was, and within an hour, I had all 42 knives were spoken for. People were like, yeah, get me on board with that, which is, on a Wednesday morning, just random. So that's, speaks to the following that I got, and my customers they're so the best. So, so I did that, and it went off super well. And he was super pumped, and the whole foundation was stoked on that, of course. And so I ran a second one of those, and I've done like a raffle, and just it's just a great cause. Like it's one of those things where you don't have to worry about like, is there some millionaire CEO just making bank off of this thing? People, it's for real. And he sent videos back from the Congo, from one of the sites where they were building a huge garden for the community to grow their own food, to eat themselves, but then also to sell to the local markets. So they're actually bringing in some money for the community and stuff. So it's just transforming tons and tons of lives over there, which is phenomenal. And so it's kind of selfish, because the whole time I'm making those things and doing that, I'm just feeling really good about myself.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really not, it's everyone says that it's such a, they say it's selfless or whatever. It's this charity thing, but no, it's totally, it's making me feel good the whole time I'm doing it.
Awesome.
So, and now they're taking over. They're taking on fighting bullying in the U.S., which is huge. Justin was always bullied as a kid, and so I mean now he's a champion heavyweight UFC fighter. So they're probably not bullying him too much, but he's taking on that, and they're doing all these amazing campaigns in all of these high schools and public schools across the United States, really taking on this horrible bullying, which is really a pandemic in itself. So that's really cool. And yeah, their whole foundation is just awesome. Everyone should go and check them out, and they should watch Justin's podcast on Joe Rogan, because he explains all this way better than I can, for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, how did you get connected with him? You said you just listened to it on Joe Rogan's podcast.
I guess so. Yeah, I think that was the first time that I was really, I'd heard him before, and it was really cool to listen to him. And but until he put that number, that $4,200 number on something, it was never really that tangible concept to me. But then once that was in my head, and then I could wrap my head around that and put it in the terms of knives, what I could do, that's when it really sort of clicked. Like, oh, I can actually, this is something I can really do, and it can have a real impact on people.
So do you keep track of how many of those knives you've sold total, like for your personal self, just so you know how much you donated through your organization to them?
Yeah. So we did, the first one was 42 knives at $100. The second one, 42 was a lot for me to build.
Sure. Yeah.
So the second one, we did 21 knives at $200 a piece, and we kind of upgraded them a little bit, tried to make them a little more worth the double money that they were going out at. Again, those ones took off. So that was two that we did of that. And then we did a couple of really big raffles. And at this point now, I just 5% of all the knife sales just goes directly to them. So that's, so it's, I don't really keep track of a dollar amount of what's going on with it, but every month or every couple of months, I send them 5% of all the knives that I've sold. And people have been I've had a great reaction from people that I'll get a quote request, someone asking about, how much is this knife? I really like what you're doing, and I love that you're working with Fight for the Forgotten. That's such a great foundation and a great cause. And so I'd be super pumped that part of my purchase is going to help that foundation, which is, it's just awesome. It gives people a real easy way to help out.
For sure. That's awesome. That's really, really cool. So with your knife and tool, what about the and tool? So we know you make belts and everything and a lot of woodwork. How long have you been doing the and tool? And are you wanting to expand the and tool, or are you going to keep just mainly focusing on knives?
That was kind of, when I was trying to come up with like a company name, there's all kinds of, like, you could go with like Mike Jones Knives or Blades or whatever, that sort of stuff. I just really liked the sound of knife and tool. It had sort of a timeless kind of quality to it. I guess you could say like the bushfuckers that am I allowed to swear on your podcast?
Yes.
Okay. So I think the bushfuckers that I do are they're more of a tool than a knife, really. I used to do a lot of like restore a lot of axes or old hand tools, chisels, planes, that sort of thing. So I was doing a lot of that. It's something that I would like to make chisels at some point. I think that'd be really cool. Okay. Sort of branch off a little bit into that sort of thing. But definitely knives are about 95% of what I do, I guess.
And so how much time do you spend on a typical day working on your knives? What's a happy work-life balance with something like that?
That's kind of been up and down and different lately. It's for a long time it was like 12, 14 hours when you take into account like, the social media stuff, replying to emails, all that sort of thing you do first thing in the morning and right before bed. So it was pretty much like I'm on my phone as I'm going to sleep, and then pick it up again and, answering emails again right away first thing before I'm out of bed. So I'm trying to dial it back a little bit. The wife is trying to dial it back a little bit too. It's especially, springtime, we got a big garden and everything. So there's a lot of work to do around the house. So doing a little bit of that. So it's still in time in the shop. Actually getting dirty is, I try to do it. I try to keep it to 5 days a week. And it's at least 5, 6 to 8 or 9 hours that I'm really in here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we've talked a lot about your knives for our audience. When you were growing up as a kid up there in Canada, is this something that like always interests you? Were you always really interested in knives growing up? Did you ever foresee yourself, making a living doing what you're doing, or did you have a total different vision for your life?
Yeah, I mean, it was never on the sheet in the guidance counselor's office what you want to do when you grow up. Knife making was never on there, but I always loved working with my hands. I was always following my dad around, fixing stuff and stealing his tools and making things. So I loved that part of it. And growing up, I always loved something about a knife. I could never really put my finger on what it was, but just that utilitarian sort of concept of having something in your hand, that utility, that tool that a knife really is. I really like that, always having one on me. So, I always had it for whatever. I always carry a knife on me now. And which is the first rule of knife making is always, the first rule of knife safety is always have a knife. I've always got one on me. Yeah. So as far as whatever I always wanted to do, that always changed, like it does for most people. I wanted to do this or that or whatever. The carpentry thing I just sort of fell into when I didn't have anything else going on. And this has been, it's just like I say, it's that perfect thing that doesn't take too long to make. It's a good size. I can do it in a little shipping container, so it doesn't take up a huge amount of space. And I can ship them all over the world, which is perfect. A lot of my friends make furniture and concrete countertops and stuff. You can't ship those very far.
No.
So it's the perfect thing for that.
Are you carrying a knife right now?
Of course, yeah.
What kind? Can I see?
Yeah, it's my little it's my poke.
I love the name. That's awesome.
Yeah, these little guys that I make, it's just, there's no handle on it. It's just raw steel. It's made to be as low profile and tiny as possible so that it fits horizontally on your belt. And it's just, you don't know it's there until you need it. And then this one's actually a bit of a lemonade. It was one of my first ones, and I snapped the tip off of it.
Okay.
In fairness, I was trying to pry apart a particularly knotty piece of firewood with it, and it's only like a 2-inch blade, so it's definitely not meant for that. And I snapped the tip off it, so I reprofiled it, and it still works. But yeah, I always have to have a knife on you.
How long does something like that typically take you to make?
These little guys are probably with the sheath and everything, and they're heat treated and tempered and everything, just like my normal knives. They're in the 4-hour range, probably 3-4 hours.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome.
So what advice would you have, let's say, if any of our listeners want to make knives, what would you want to tell them that no one told you when you started? What piece of advice would you have for them?
I would say don't get into it looking to make money off it first of all. Just, do it because you want to. If you get into it trying to make money, you're going to fail right away for sure. No one makes money at it for a long time. And just, you don't need a lot. When you look at some of these guys on YouTube and you look at their shop and their setup, they've got a lot of really high tech, expensive equipment. You can still make a knife with a vise and a hand file. You don't need a whole lot. I started out with a really cheap little bench sander thing that wasn't designed at all for what I was doing with it, but it worked. You don't need a lot. So get into it for what you can, and just have fun with it and make funny stuff and give them to your friends and do a lot of that until you start making something you're really proud of, and then think about the rest of it if you're thinking business. But yeah, just get into it really and just really have fun with it. And yeah.
So how often do you spend time actually drawing them out and trying to come up with new ideas for new knives, or do you mostly rely on your customers kind of want what they want and you build them something beautiful, probably even better than what they imagined?
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of both. When I first started out, it was for sure a lot more sketching. Drawing knives is really fun. People should do that anyways. It's really quick to do and it's easy to erase mistakes. So I had lots of sketches when I was really first getting into it. And then and nowadays it's a little less of that because there's a lot of people just wanting what I already make. Mm-hmm. So trying to fill orders takes up most of my month. But I've definitely got some sketches and a couple of ideas of things that I want to do in the future. And So yeah, it's still fun for sure to sit down and with a piece of paper and a pencil and sketch out some different ideas, and because really any shape that you make, you can turn into a real thing.
We'll have to give it a try. I've never even tried.
Yeah, it's fun.
What's your absolute favorite knife you've made, like design? Do you have a favorite? I know you make them, so you probably love all of them. But is there one that you enjoy making more than any other?
That I enjoy making? It's hard to say. They all have
the finished product. I'll reword the question.
Yeah, as a finished product, I really like those the hunters that I make, the hidden tang ones, because just the feeling of a hidden tang handle, and it takes a long time to really contour and shape that, so it's really ergonomic,
for sure,
and comfortable in your hand. So I really like when those ones turn out really nice. But they're a whole lot of work, so they wouldn't be my favorite to make, but they're probably my favorite once they're done.
That's awesome. So I heard, because when we first started talking about bringing you on the podcast, you had mentioned you had a YouTube channel at one point. What was the trials and tribulations of that? How did that go, and what was it about?
That I really just started because just to kind of give my friends an idea of what it takes to build a knife, kind of. I guess my first bunch of knives I was just giving out to friends, like, here, I made this, try it, see what you think. And but none of them really ever came over and saw the shop or whatever, or what it actually takes to go into making a knife. And so I just started putting those together to just kind of get all the steps sort of laid out. And then I started realizing that there weren't any videos kind of detailing some of the processes of the way that I do it. Everybody makes a knife differently. And so there's lots of videos on there, lots of tutorials and how-tos and stuff. But I had a couple of processes that I did that I didn't see anybody else doing. And so I was trying to record some of those and put those up just to kind of help people if they were getting into it. Maybe they stumble across my video and see a different way of doing something that maybe would resonate with them. And yeah, it was kind of fun too after a little while making these videos, and I started doing some funny, stupid stuff, and people kind of liked those. And so, yeah, it was just kind of fun. It was just, one more sort of outlet, just to kind of it was just a creative outlet eventually, really, is what it was, getting those things together and putting them up on the internet, and then getting a little bit of feedback. I really like when there's comments on those and replying to those comments and getting a little bit of two-way sort of discussion going on with them.
Sure.
So yeah, but that's something I haven't done in a while. I really need to make some more videos. It's been, I think,
for sure,
over a year.
It'd be great. I'll watch it. It'll be great.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I'll make some more.
Of course. So you mentioned you have sometimes 12, 14-hour work days. With that, what do you do when you're not doing knives? So you mentioned you had a garden, kid. What does that all entail?
Yeah, what is the rest of Mike Jones' life about when he's not making knives?
Yeah, there's up here in the middle of BC, there's lots of fun stuff to do. We, my buddies and I, we do a lot of snowboarding and snowmobiling in the wintertime, and gardening in the summer, getting back into mountain biking to try and kind of fight off the dad bod that we're all seem to be growing. That kind of
same trails.
Yeah, there's an awesome network of trails up here. They just put a whole bunch of money into last year, so they're super sick, and it's that perfect balance of making us work for it and getting some exercise, and then still we get that sort of adrenaline rush that we all kind of grew up with. We're all a bunch of old bikers and skaters. We need those once in a while to satisfy us.
For sure.
Awesome. So I know before we were talking about how eventually you might have to bring a young kid in. Let's branching off that. Do you see this as something like that you're going to pass down to your kids? Is that your goal? Do you want to be able to teach your kids your craft?
For sure. If he shows some passion for it or some interest in it, he's always in here messing with my tools and reorganizing my shop and stuff for me. He's only 3.5 right now, so he's kind of useless. But I could see him definitely being into playing with tools and wanting to see what Dad's been doing in the shop all the time. He's always wanting to. I can hear him outside the door here. Actually, his mom's trying to keep him away from the shop because he wants to come in and see what I'm doing. But like I say, if he's into it, for sure, I'll teach him everything I can about it. If he shows some interest, I'm not going to force it on him or anything like that. But
of course.
for sure, it'd be cool to see him take it on. That'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so you said you've been doing it for a long time. How long is a long time? 20 plus years, or how long?
This? No,
Yeah,
I've been doing this total about 7 years
7 years.
and full time for the last 3.
Oh, I asked you if you enjoy it. Like leaving the 9 to 5 is obviously probably a weight off your shoulders, but do you sincerely enjoy what you're doing? Everything about it?
For sure. Yeah, there was definitely some worry about when I was thinking about doing it full time, coming from it just being a hobby and something I do for fun into it being actual work. So there was definitely some worry about it turning into a job and losing the passion and the drive for it. There's days definitely when I just sit back and think I really don't want to be grinding steel right now. But every time I finish a knife, I'm super pumped that it's to hold it in my hand and stuff. So I found that taking a break sometimes of recognizing when it's becoming that sort of a job sort of feeling and stepping back, maybe taking a few days off or something, really helps the motivation to get back into it. Or I've also found that if you've got a space like this where everything's always the same and it's kind of monotonous and everything is just nothing ever changes in here really, if you do little things to modify or improve your workspace, I found that can really change things a lot. So as simple as if I build a shelf or put up a couple of screws and hang a couple of tools up or whatever, I try to do that. Say I'll take like a morning of every month or so and just do things like beyond just cleaning up, just little improvements. And then and it keeps things a little bit fresh in here, and it keeps you kind of pumped to come in and work in this space. And then eventually you end up with a really sweet space to work in too, if you're always improving it.
Yeah. So obviously the transition to that was, like you said, probably a little bit nerve-wracking. How was your wife in that situation? Did she fully support you, especially since you're a provider? You said you had a newborn baby. Was she all the way on board 100%, or was she kind of shaky on it at the beginning?
She has always been an incredible amount of support for awesome. This whole thing. Even it helped a lot that I was going to be home and I could help with raising the kid for sure. So that was a big benefit to her, me not being gone all the time. But yeah, definitely just, there were never just behind me for sure. If I was pumped on it, then she was too. Hold on a sec. I think just a minute.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Hey.
No problem.
That's not my internet connection. Sorry. I'm closing the steel door. Sorry about yeah. He was shutting the steel door on my shipping container, and that was blocking the internet.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, she's always been like 100% behind. As if I was confident in it, that was all that she needed to feel confident with it. She knows that I was more scared about it than she was. So if I was going to go for it, then she was behind me for it for sure.
Awesome. Having that kind of support system is huge.
So as far as when did you and your wife get meet? Because it sounds like she's super supportive of you and everything. It sounds like you guys have been going at it for a while. How long have you guys been together?
Going at it's a good way to put it. We've been together something like 12, 13 years or now or so. She was, I'm from Ontario and she was there. And I was living out here in Whistler for a long time. And then she ended up, we did kind of long distance for a while. And she came out, moved in with me in Whistler. And then we moved up here to the middle of British Columbia where it's a lot more affordable to live and had a kid.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. What kind of area do you guys live in? Do you live in more of a rural area?
We're a little rural now. Yeah, the town we're just outside of a town of about 10,000 people, so it's pretty small. It's just the perfect size for us. So it's got all the amenities we need, but it's definitely no metropolis. Neither of us need to live in a big city for sure.
We both grew up in 10,000 population, so.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay, man. Well. I think we covered all the questions we had written down for you. where can we have our listeners find you at?
Just Mike Jones Knife and Tool is Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all those things. I think I even have a Twitter account, but I don't really use it that much. But yeah, all the social medias, and MikeJonesKnifeandTool.com is my webpage. And
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. And you're going to be posting more YouTube videos soon.
I will try to make more YouTube videos. It can be tough to snap out of the zone when I'm at work and try to put something together, but I'll see what I can do.
For sure. Okay, well, thank you for joining us today. I know it wasn't too long, but we really enjoyed having you.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks very much. And I'm pumped to listen to your podcast, and good luck with everything you guys are doing. That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, as soon as it's uploaded, we will share the link with you.
Yeah. And stay
Definitely. I'll spread it around.
Awesome. Thank you.